What if I told you that the most devastating response to betrayal is no response at all? Not anger, not begging, not even an explanation, just silence. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. It forces them to face the weight of their own choices, and that weight will break them. Most men panic when abandoned, calling, pleading, exploding, and she feels powerful. But the man who chooses silence flips the script. In one move, he takes back everything she thought she controlled. Silence is not weakness, it is power, and if you master it, you'll never chase, never explain, never need closure again. If this speaks to you, like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station, your place for strength, clarity, and self-mastery. Start this journey now. Drop a 1 if silence once broke you, or a 2 if you're ready to master it. Stay tuned, because next you'll see how emotional control shatters her expectations. Let's dive in. 1. Emotional control shatters her expectations. She thought she knew you. She thought she had you figured out. In her mind, the script was already written. She would walk away, and you would break. She expected the phone to light up with desperate calls. She pictured long, late-night texts filled with pleas for another chance. She even braced herself for anger, bitterness, maybe even accusations, because that's what most men give when they're rejected. And as long as she could count on your reaction, she could count on her importance. But this time, the story took a turn she never expected. Instead of the explosion, there was silence. And in that silence, something inside her shifted. Most men crack under the weight of emotion. They prove with every word, every outburst, every uncontrolled message that she still holds the strings to their heart. But when you chose a different path, when you held your composure, when your presence stayed calm and unshaken, you shattered her expectations. You didn't give her fire to fuel her ego. You didn't give her tears to reassure her power. You gave her nothing, and that nothing was louder than any outburst could ever be. Silence is not emptiness. It is a mirror. And when you held that mirror steady, she began to see something she never wanted to confront. Doubt. Questions crept in quietly, whispering when she was alone. Did I even matter? Why isn't he broken? Did he ever love me at all? That doubt is poisonous, because it rewrites the story in her mind. She thought she was irreplaceable, yet your emotional control told a different truth. That her absence did not destroy you, that her leaving did not define you, and the longer your calm endured, the stronger that doubt grew. She scrolled through her phone, waiting for the missed call that never came. She refreshed her social media, half hoping, half dreading a sign that you were still circling her orbit. But all she saw was silence, and that silence haunted her more than rage or begging ever could. Because silence doesn't give answers, it forces her to fill in the blanks, and her imagination becomes her torment. That is the power of emotional control. It isn't coldness. It isn't indifference for the sake of cruelty. It is mastery, the ability to decide who and what deserves your energy. The man who can no longer be provoked is the man who cannot be broken. And in that realization, she feels the regret take root. Because the moment she realized she could no longer shake you, she also realized she had lost you. And this is only the beginning, because once doubt enters her mind, the entire game begins to unravel. 2. Reverse psychology turns the tables. There is a cruel truth about human nature. We want what we cannot have. The more something slips through our fingers, the more we crave it. And this truth becomes painfully clear in relationships. She thought walking away would make you run harder. She thought her absence would spark your desperation. She believed your need for her would expose itself in calls, in texts, in late-night messages filled with longing. In her mind, it was certain you would crumble, you would chase, and she would feel powerful. But when you didn't, when you held steady and gave her nothing, her reality cracked. At first, she brushed it off, confident in her script. "He'll text tomorrow," she told herself. Then tomorrow came and went. Days turned into weeks, and still silence. That silence was not just absence, it was presence of a different kind. It filled her mind with questions she wasn't ready to face. The longer it lasted, the louder those questions grew. Is he already with someone else? Did he stop caring? Did I miscalculate everything? Each question dug deeper than any argument you could have made, because it was her own imagination turning against her. This is the genius of reverse psychology, not as a trick or manipulation, but as a natural law. She expected one outcome, your pursuit. When you delivered the opposite, the power shifted instantly. Silence became the loudest response. She tried to dismiss it, but the emptiness gnawed at her. She replayed conversations, analyzed small moments, searched for clues that you might still be holding on. Yet every time she looked for evidence of your weakness, all she found was strength. And that strength disturbed her, because it challenged the image she had of herself. She thought she was the prize, the one who could walk away with certainty. But your refusal to chase exposed another reality, that she wasn't as irreplaceable as she imagined. Now she was the one chasing answers, haunted by the possibility that you were already moving forward without her. What makes this reversal so powerful is that you didn't have to say a word. No speeches, no angry outbursts, no attempts to explain your worth. Your silence forced her to create the narrative, and the story her mind invented hurt more than anything you could have written. That is the cruel irony. By giving nothing, you made her feel everything. And this is only the beginning, because once she starts questioning her decision, once her certainty collapses, regret follows close behind. And regret is the one feeling she never planned for. 3. Pain forged you stronger. There is a certain comfort she found in imagining you broken. In her mind, the power she held over you didn't vanish when she left. It lingered in the thought that you would suffer without her. She pictured you staring at your phone, replaying old conversations, drowning in memories of her. That image gave her confidence, almost a sense of pride, because as long as you were broken, she was still relevant. As long as your life revolved around the shadow of her absence, she could feel powerful. But reality didn't give her the satisfaction she expected. Instead of breaking, you transformed. Pain, when embraced, is not destruction. It is fuel. Every man who has endured heartbreak knows the suffocating weight of those long nights. The silence after midnight, the ache that creeps in when you realize she isn't coming back. But the difference lies in what you do with that pain. Some men let it consume them. They stop eating, stop training, stop pursuing their purpose. They vanish into despair, hoping she will notice, hoping she will return. And in doing so, they surrender all of their strength. But you chose differently. You looked pain in the eye and refused to bow. While she was scrolling endlessly through social feeds, you were lifting weights, turning every ounce of anger into discipline. While she was gossiping to friends, feeding her ego with attention, you were rebuilding your focus, tightening your vision, sharpening your will. Every sleepless night became another brick in the foundation of the life you were determined to build. The pain that was supposed to break you became the very thing that made you stronger. That is the paradox she never saw coming. She thought her absence would shatter you, but it became the reason you rose higher. She thought she was leaving you in ruins, but the ruins became the ground where you constructed a stronger man. Every hour you spent in struggle became a testimony that you were no longer defined by her presence. And slowly, without realizing it, you became unrecognizable. Not because you pretended to be okay, but because you forged yourself into something greater. What unsettles her most is not just the transformation itself, but what it means. The man she left behind no longer exists. The man who once made her the center of his universe has been replaced by one who lives for his mission, his purpose, his growth. And the truth cuts deep. You no longer need her. Her opinion, her attention, even her memory no longer dictate the rhythm of your life. That absence of need is what unsettles her, because it strips away the last illusion of control she thought she had. This is the silent revenge of growth. You didn't need to flaunt it. You didn't post pictures trying to provoke her or send messages hoping to prove a point. You let your actions speak. You let your transformation be the answer to every doubt she once had about your worth. And when she sees you again, whether in passing, through friends, or from afar, the reality is undeniable. You are no longer the man she left. You are stronger, sharper, untouchable, and the cruelest truth for her is that her absence was the very catalyst that made it possible. Heartbreak is not the end. It is the forge. The fire that was meant to destroy you only purified you, burning away weakness, burning away dependency, leaving behind a man who no longer waits for anyone to complete him. That realization hits harder than any words you could ever say. Because when she finally recognizes that she has no place in the life you built from your pain, regret sets in. She regrets not because you begged, but because you rose without her. And that is the power of pain. It forges. It breaks down the man who was, only to rebuild the man who will be. If this part resonates, remember this truth. Pain does not weaken the strong, it creates them. And if you're living this right now, write it in the comments. Pain made me stronger. 4. Detachment makes you magnetic. There is nothing more magnetic than a man who does not beg for validation. A man who no longer craves approval becomes untouchable because he carries himself with a quiet power the world can feel. She expected her posts to sting you, her new pictures to spark jealousy, her updates to provoke a reaction. She wanted to see you stumble, even just a little, so she could reassure herself that she still mattered. But the moment you didn't flinch, the moment you showed no signs of being shaken, something inside her shifted. True detachment isn't about pretending. It isn't about posting pictures of yourself with a forced smile, hoping she notices. It isn't about proving to the world that you've moved on. That kind of noise is still rooted in need. It still revolves around her. Real detachment is quieter, stronger, more dangerous. It is calm, steady, and self-sufficient. It is the way you live your life without pausing to think about how it looks to her. And that silence unsettles her more than anything else, because indifference cannot be staged. It is felt. She sees you moving forward with purpose, no longer orbiting her, no longer waiting for her attention. She notices the absence of your energy, and in that absence, she begins to feel her own vulnerability. Her mind starts to whisper questions she never imagined she would ask. Why doesn't he care anymore? Did I misjudge my worth? Has he already replaced me? Her regret does not come from anger or confrontation. It comes from the contrast between what she expected and what she received. She thought you would chase, but you didn't. She thought you would fight for her, but you stayed silent. That reversal unsettles her, because it shifts the balance of power. Suddenly, she is the one doubting, the one wondering, the one who feels left behind. Detachment makes you magnetic because it signals strength. It shows that you are not bound by anyone else's choices, that you can walk away without regret, that your life belongs to you alone. And when you reach that place of calm, you stop chasing, and everything begins to chase you. And this is only the surface, because once detachment takes root, it sets the stage for the coldest and most powerful lesson of all, the moment she sees you again and realizes that she no longer affects you. That is where the regret deepens and the story takes its sharpest turn. 5. The cold shoulder cuts deep. There always comes a moment of return. Maybe it happens by accident. She walks into the same room. Maybe it happens by intention. She reaches out, testing the waters, just to see if you still feel the pull. This is the moment where most men collapse. Their emotions rush back like a flood, and in their panic to look unbothered, they overcompensate. Some avoid her eyes, shrinking into silence like cowards. Others go too far in the opposite direction, plastering on fake smiles, talking too loudly, trying too hard to prove they're fine. But both reveal the same truth, that she still matters. Your power lies in being different. When the encounter comes, you don't avoid and you don't chase. You meet her presence with calm. Not cold hostility that proves you're still wounded. Not eager warmth that betrays longing, but a steady, unshaken indifference. You acknowledge her existence without indulging it, and in that moment, something inside her cracks. What cuts her deepest is not rejection, it's irrelevance. Anger shows you still care. Begging shows she still controls you. Even bitterness keeps her alive in your mind. But indifference is death to her ego, because it tells her she no longer has any effect on you. That realization strikes harder than any cruel words ever could. She may send a casual text, expecting to stir something. She may smile just to see if your eyes light up like they used to. She may throw a reminder of the past into the conversation, hoping you'll take the bait. But your response is simple, neutral, effortless. No over-explaining, no spark of emotion, no sign that she still lives in your thoughts. And in that simplicity, you hand her the mirror she cannot escape. The man she remembers once poured energy into her. Now she sees a stranger, calm, focused, detached. And that is what haunts her. Because the greatest fear of anyone who once held your heart is not that you hate them, but that you forgot them. To become forgettable in the eyes of the man who once made her his world, that is the punishment she never prepared for. And this is only the midpoint of the story. Because when the cold shoulder slices through her expectations, it sets the stage for what comes next. The day she returns and discovers that your silence was not a tactic, but the truth of who you've become. 6. When she returns, you don't bend. They always return. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day curiosity gets the better of her. Sometimes she comes back just to test the waters, to see if she still holds the same pull over you. Other times it's ego. She wants to know if you're still waiting in the shadows, ready to fall at her feet. And this is where most men fail. They see her name light up on their phone and their heart races. They convince themselves this is the moment she finally realizes her mistake. Excited, they rush to let her back in, forgetting everything they've learned. In a single instant, all the power they gained slips away. But the man who has truly grown does not kneel when she returns. He no longer views her as the prize. He no longer hands her the crown she once wore. When she reappears, his energy is steady, calm, detached. Maybe he chooses to respond, maybe he doesn't. If he does, it is short and neutral. If he doesn't, it is not out of anger, but out of choice. Either way, one truth is clear. She no longer feels like the center of his life. This is what unsettles her the most. She remembers being the gravity he orbited around. She remembers the power of knowing he would always come back, no matter what. But now she finds herself speaking to a man who does not lean forward, does not seek, does not crave. And in that shift, the mirror turns back on her. The realization burns deep. She was once your world, and now she is just another name in your phone. That is the sting she never prepared for, because a man who truly outgrows her is a man she can no longer control. It isn't hatred that breaks her. It isn't rejection. It's the indifference of being treated like anyone else. She wanted to be unforgettable, but now she's faced with the truth that the version of you who gave her that pedestal no longer exists. And this is where her regret begins to haunt her. She didn't expect to return to find a stranger, calm, unshaken, unmoved by her presence. She didn't expect to see a man who is no longer waiting, but walking forward with his life. And the cruelest irony: the more she feels that loss of power, the more she wants it back. But by then, it is too late. And this is only the surface of true strength, because once she realizes she cannot bend you anymore, she will face the one thing she feared most: the power of your indifference. 7. Indifference is the final power. Her greatest fear was never your anger. Anger still means she occupies space in your mind. It was never even your silence, because silence can still be temporary, still leave room for hope. What unsettles her most is your indifference, because indifference is final. It tells her she is no longer special. It tells her she's been replaced not by another woman, but by something far more powerful: your peace. She doesn't give up easily. She tests, she probes, she throws small sparks into the air, hoping one will ignite. Maybe she likes an old photo. Maybe she sends a casual message. Maybe she finds a way to cross paths again. Every gesture is a question. Do I still matter? She wants to see the flicker in your eyes, the hesitation in your voice, the hint of longing that proves she still has power. But when her efforts meet nothing, when every attempt falls into calm indifference, the truth starts to weigh on her. It's not rejection that cuts her, it's irrelevance. Rejection still means she's significant enough to push away, but indifference leaves her stranded, stripped of control, staring at a man who no longer reacts, no longer chases, no longer needs to look back. And that realization is unbearable, because it confirms what she never thought possible. She lost a man who doesn't wait, doesn't cling, and doesn't bend. Indifference is the final stage of strength. It is the point where your growth has carried you so far that her presence, or absence, no longer defines you. You don't pretend, you don't posture, you don't play games. You simply live, fully and freely, and in that freedom you become untouchable. That is what makes indifference so terrifying. It shows her that her role in your life has ended, not with bitterness, but with peace. And peace is something she cannot compete with. That's when regret hits hardest. Not when she sees you angry, not when she hears your silence, but when she realizes your life has moved forward without hesitation. She thought she would always remain a permanent chapter in your story. Instead, she has become a footnote. And when a woman realizes that she has lost her place in the heart of a man who has mastered himself, there is no wound deeper. And this is only the beginning, because once indifference takes hold, it unlocks the truth she never wanted to face. The world no longer belongs to her shadow. It belongs entirely to you. 8. The world became yours. For the longest time, she believed she was the prize, the one who defined your value, the one who made or broke your sense of worth. She thought your world revolved around her approval, that your energy existed to feed her attention. But what she never realized is that you were never meant to orbit her. You were meant to build your own empire. The same energy you once wasted chasing, doubting, and proving yourself, you took back, and you redirected it into something greater. You built your body with discipline, your mind with clarity, your mission with relentless focus. Every ounce of attention that once went into her moods and her silence now fuels your purpose. Every hour that was lost wondering about her is now invested in the man you were always meant to become. And here's the cruel irony. When you stopped caring whether she noticed, that's when she noticed. Because a man who no longer revolves around a woman becomes something far more powerful than a partner in her game. He becomes the center of his own universe. He becomes the sun. And once a man becomes the sun, she cannot escape his light. She feels it in the way others talk about you. She sees it in the respect you command without saying a word. She hears it in the quiet confidence that now defines you. Her regret doesn't come because you begged, and it doesn't come because you tried to prove a point. It comes because she realizes the version of you she left behind is gone forever. In his place stands a man who no longer asks for recognition because he no longer needs it. And that is what unsettles her most. The very moment she thought she erased you, you became unforgettable, not because you chased her, but because you rose so far she could no longer reach you. The world became yours the moment you stopped handing it away. And the man who claims his own world, who builds it with his hands and his will, is a man no woman forgets. Because while she once thought she was the prize, she now understands the truth. You always were. And this sets the stage for the final revelation, the moment that seals everything, when she learns that your greatest victory was never her regret, but your freedom. 9. The Stoic always has the last laugh. In the end, the sweetest revenge is not her regret, it is your freedom. Regret may sting her, but freedom transforms you. Because while she believed she could walk away and replace you with ease, the man you have become cannot be replaced. You rose from the pain, not bitter, not vengeful, but calm and untouchable. You embraced the discipline of silence, the strength of detachment, and the clarity of purpose. That is what makes you unshakable. That is what makes you stoic. She thought she left you in pieces, but all she really did was awaken a man who no longer lowers himself to battles beneath him. You no longer waste your energy on proving, chasing, or pleading. You don't fight for validation, and you don't demand recognition. You simply rise. And in rising, you show her what true strength looks like, the kind of strength that is not loud, not desperate, but steady. The kind of strength that builds kingdoms quietly, while others are distracted by games. What unsettles her most is the speed of your evolution. By the time she realizes what she lost, you are already gone, not just in distance, but in spirit. You are too far ahead, too focused on your mission, too immersed in building a life of value to even hear the echo of her regret. And that is the final laugh, the one she will never share in, because she wanted you to stay behind, tethered to the memory of her. But instead, you became the man who outgrew her, the man she can no longer reach. This is the essence of Stoicism, not to destroy, but to transcend, not to wish for her pain, but to build your peace. And nothing haunts a woman more than seeing the man she once knew transform into someone she can no longer influence, no longer define, no longer control. Her regret belongs to her, but your freedom belongs to you. And in that freedom lies your ultimate victory. And that is where the story ends, not with her regret as the prize, but with your peace as the crown. Because in the end, the Stoic always has the last laugh, and once you've risen this far, the only direction left to go is higher. She was certain of the ending, certain that once she walked away, you would follow. She expected the calls, the restless texts, the desperate attempts to win her back. That was the script she wrote in her head, a script she had seen play out with others, a script that fed her sense of control. But you did the one thing she never saw coming. You didn't chase. Instead, you rose. You mastered your emotions when she thought they would master you. You held your ground when she thought you would collapse. You stepped back, detached from the chaos, and in that distance, you found your strength. You rebuilt yourself piece by piece, not to prove anything to her, but to prove everything to yourself. And in doing so, you became untouchable. You became the man who doesn't wait for validation, who doesn't bend under pressure, who doesn't live for the memory of someone who chose to walk away. And now her regret is inevitable. She feels it not because you demanded it, not because you fought for it, but because she sees the undeniable truth. Your life moved forward without her. What once made her feel powerful now reminds her of what she lost. But here's the part that changes everything. Her regret no longer matters, because the victory was never in her coming back. The victory was never in hearing her admit she was wrong. The victory was in becoming the man who no longer needs her to. That is the freedom most men never reach. The freedom of knowing that your worth was never in her hands. It was always in yours. And once you rise into that clarity, you see the truth. She was never the destination. She was only the lesson. The real destination was always your strength, your peace, your mastery. So let her regret if she must. Let her wonder. Let her watch from a distance. But you keep rising. Because the moment you stopped chasing her, you started becoming the man you were always meant to be. If this message struck you, like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station, your space for strength, clarity, and self-mastery. And in the comments, write one line: I no longer chase, I rise. Because the moment you choose that path, you stop living in the shadow of the past and start walking in the light of your own future. Until next time, stand tall, stay calm, and keep rising.